welcome to the Manchester Blue Show. We are joined by the MCFC Discord lads. Tonight we have Neel, Arthur, Adit, and Tibbs. How are we all, guys? Welcome.
Yeah, good. I'm good. Could have been
Good
better.
stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. You're more than welcome. So let's just dive straight into it then. Let's talk about the Leeds result. Obviously, it didn't go to plan. We lost with a last-minute kind of winner against us when we were pushing. But how do we feel about the result in terms of the bigger picture? I'd like to go to you first, Neel. What do you think about the result of the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think before the game started, I tweeted out saying I would take a draw. I regret that now, but after I saw the lineup, I think it was clear that Pep was focusing on Dortmund, as he should, because that's clearly the more important game. If we win the league this season, which we should, and a couple of other trophies, and no one's gonna remember saying, "Oh yeah, we lost to Leeds at some random point in the season." What matters at the end of the day is the trophies you win at the end of the season. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, you would want to win every game, but you can't do it. And I've said this before. The winning run, we had 20 something games in a row when we're effectively playing once every 3 days. That is just phenomenal. It's unbelievable how good our squad is and how good our players are. But then it's important to not get carried away, because that level of performance is not sustainable no matter who you have in your team. So yeah, I mean, it was not. And at the end of the day, you have to remember, we were the better team overall, and we, on another day, we could have easily won that game. We were, as you said, we were robbed in the last minute, and I think I saw some images where Rafinha might even have been offside in the build-up to that goal. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe something wrong with the images. But yeah, I mean, not the worst thing in the world, in my opinion.
What about you, Tibbs? How do you feel about it?
I think keeping an eye on the bigger picture. I'm glad that we rotated the lineup, that we rested some key players. The cynical part of me feels like typical City is now the point where we should win. We should have all the stats, everything going our way, and we still lose 2-1. And not even a draw, but actually losing. It sounds like the new updated version of typical City. So it was frustrating to lose this when it seemed that we were overly dominant. But again, keeping an eye on the bigger picture. I mean, I don't want to jinx it now, but the league is pretty much a done deal. So I'd rather lose to Leeds in the league than a heavy defeat to Dortmund in the Champions League. So in that sense, that's all I have to say. Frustrating to watch, obviously, on the day, but yeah.
What about you, Arthur? Are you on those lines?
I can't lie. I was a bit disappointed that we didn't win over Leeds, but I think a lot of people look at Leeds and think, oh, you should just roll them over, especially with the squad that we have and the way that we've been playing. But people seem to forget that Leeds can be a very difficult team to play against. Like, they have a very compact defense that they can get you on the counter like they did. I was happy to see the rotation that we got. I'm happy to see Torres score. Zinchenko was great, in my opinion, one of the best players we played against Leeds. But it's just one hiccup on the road to the champion. I mean, we're gonna win. Like, I'm 100% confident that we're gonna win the Premier League this season. Like, I have no doubts. But it's like everybody else was saying, like, the bigger picture needs to be focused on. So Champions League, things like that. So we lost, but it's not the end of the world.
So Eddie, what about the formation then? It was quite a notable change from a 4-2-3-1 to 4-3-3. So how do you feel that played out for us?
I feel like it was really big. Like, I don't know what Pep did or why he thought to play that, but it really sort of held down our midfield. And like Zinchenko, like Arthur said, he did play really well. He reminded me of how Frankie de Jong played at Ajax, like getting behind that left back and supplying the balls to the center and that left-hand side. And I think we could have done better, especially against a 10-man team Leeds. But if in the end, I think they just took advantage of our high line and just exploited the space. So yeah.
So just adding on from that, do you think it was a bad performance or just one of those of a typical performance where on another day we could have won 3-0 and it wouldn't have really mattered? We had enough chances. Do you think that in the big picture, the formation change really mattered that much, considering we had like as strong as team as we probably could have put out really in terms of rotation?
Well, yes and no. I think the formation gave Leeds a lot of space to pass in between the lines and get an advantage and like put a lot more chances into the net. But we did play really strongly, in my opinion. It was just that last minute, just rob. But yeah, I think we really should have done better, and the formation might have played a little bit in that.
So Neil, rest versus rotation. How did you see the decision? Like, how was it? Do you feel like it was resting players, or do you think it was rotation? I think there was a little bit of a subtle difference between the two.
Yeah, there is, but I think it was you have to mix both at the end of the day, right? So obviously there was rest involved. So we rested the big guns like Kevin De Bruyne. We had Phil Foden, Riyad Mahrez. All of them got some rest. Walker as well. I think he'll start in the Champions League. But more on that later. And yeah, at the same time, some rotations. It was nice to see Ake start, for example. Torres as well. Good to see him start. Good to see him score as outer side. And Zinchenko in midfield. I think he plays there for Ukraine, obviously, and he's played there in his last club, FC Ufa. But I think Pep has said that he's not good enough to be a Manchester City level midfielder in the Premier League. So he's obviously like, I don't know, fifth, sixth choice. But yeah, it's good to see him get trialed out there from time to time. So yeah, I would say it's more of rest, but as a consequence, we got to do some rotation as well. So fair enough.
So, Tibbs, I was going to say this a little bit later on, but we'll go with it now. So, Zinchenko played an unfamiliar left of a three in the midfield. Now, he plays a more advanced role for Ukraine, obviously.
Mhm.
How did you feel like he did in that midfield role at the weekend?
So first of all, when it happened and the lineups were announced, I was very surprised because never in a million years would I have thought that Pep would do it. But since he did, and looking at the performance, it was actually pretty solid. I don't have like a distinct memory of anything that was phenomenal. Like he wasn't like balling out there. He wasn't like Foden against Dortmund or anything like dribbling like crazy, anything like that. But it was just like a solid performance. Nothing shiny, just getting the job done. So in that sense, I would be happy to see that happen again if we have the need, for example. If we have a lot of injuries next season, or in the early stages of the FA Cup, something like that. If Pep feels like experimenting, I feel like these would be the types of games when you can allow yourself to do it. And he is really good in that role with Ukraine, like you said. So I'm open to it.
What about you, Adi? Do you think he added some balance to that left-hand side? I mean, I think he's very, very good in the ball.
Yeah,
Other than that,
like
I don't
I
think
said,
he has much else to offer. I mean, he puts a few crosses in, but for me, it was a solid game, but he didn't really contribute much other than just be. He kind of played the same game he would play at left back in that same position. If he comes into midfield, he kind of didn't really do anything more than we've already seen.
Yeah, like I said earlier, he reminded me of how Frankie De Jong played at Ajax. He would get behind the left back and supply the ball down the wing or right through the middle back to the midfielders to supply anywhere else. Like I said, he didn't really fit that way, or at least from what I thought. But he made a little difference in our attacking, at least from that perspective.
So, Arthur, do you think Zinchenko has a future in that position, or do you think he may well be? I have said that if there was any player that was going to leave, who was the first person that surplus to requirements, it probably would be Zinchenko. Do you still feel like he adds something to us in midfield, or do you feel like he is probably going to be the first one out the door if somebody has to leave?
If somebody has to leave, I certainly hope it's not him.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I saw when he played in midfield, I feel like everybody was saying, they didn't see anything super spectacular. But the thing about playing in midfield like that is if nobody's saying anything bad about you, you're doing your job right. Like you're doing a decent job.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
I did see when he was playing that he would tend to revert back to what he did in his left back position in the other games that he's played. Like he'd play a lot more defensively than I think he normally would have, because that's how he's been conditioned to play. But I feel like if he keeps up his performances, I haven't seen a bad performance from him in God knows how long. So just the consistency that he's had, like not Phil Foden level, But the fact that he's been giving out these consistently good performances shows that I don't think he'll be going anywhere anytime soon, and I hope he stays with us.
Tibbs, do you feel like because he hasn't had a big fee attached to him, and he's come through not necessarily the academy, but he's come bought in as a young lad, do you feel like he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he's not a 30, 40, 50, 60 million pound player brought into the job? He was just somebody that was there that came under the radar.
I think so. I think you do. I mean, you compare that with obviously Foden. He's like the golden boy from the academy. You compare it with Gundogan. Obviously, we bought him for a higher fee at a time when he was doing so well in Dortmund. So you compare it to that. Zinchenko is like the little guy in the corner that you don't always notice, but you like Arthur was saying, like you never have anything bad to say about him. So nothing shiny, and I think unless there's someone who wants to buy him for a crazy amount of money, I don't see any reason for him to leave, if that makes sense. He's just solid, doing the job.
I just worry that he's not a household name in terms of his ability, and he's not setting the world on fire, you know what I mean? And given the money was spent on Mendy, I'd like to think that he'd like to keep Mendy, but if one player, I've always thought if one player was buyable and an offer came in, I think for Zinchenko, they would probably just take anything right now. And that goes off the fact that Wolves put a bid in for him, was it 18 months ago or something?
I think
this
summer actually.
Pardon?
I think the bid was this summer.
Yeah.
Prior to this season. So yeah. So
I always thought that if there was anybody that would listen, it's kind of like the old willing to listen to offers. I think for Zinchenko is as much as we all rate him as City fans, and he contributes. I just feel like if somebody wanted him, he's gettable. Whereas I don't feel like that about many other players. That makes sense.
It sounds.
Sorry, go ahead, Tibbs. Sorry.
Thanks. I was just going to say, like, it sounds like from wisdom of the crowd, seeing other City fans and other analysts, it sounds like Mendy is the one that we want to sell, but Zinchenko is the one that other clubs would want to buy. But I guess we'll see what happens this summer.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Zinchenko to me is seeming more and more to be like, before James Milner went to Liverpool, he was kind of our utility man.
Yeah.
Like if we had someone that was out and we needed someone to fill his position, James Milner was the guy. Like 1 week he'd be on the wing, 1 week he'd be in midfield, 1 week he'd be playing like left back. It didn't matter. And I feel like Zinchenko is like our new version of that. Wherever we need him, he can play because he's played almost every position.
So let me just a quick one before we move on to this. Are you surprised we've never seen the international version of Zinchenko? He's never ever really contributed anything further for the final third. He's very rarely contributed anything. He's solid at our third, middle third is solid, but that final third, we've never ever seen what he has been capable of producing for Ukraine. I think that's for me what we kind of miss. And if we saw more of that, I think we'd be less worried. I would be less worried about him being sold. You know what I mean? I'm not. If he gets sold, I wouldn't be bothered. But if we saw value in what we were losing in our team rather than internationally, I feel like that would be the one that would say to me, actually, this guy's actually worth keeping.
Yeah, well, for me, I think Pep is actively not trying to get him into the final third because, as I said, I think Pep thinks that he does not have the quality to play for Manchester City in the final third. What he does have though, that guy works incredibly hard. I mean, as you said, he was signed as a CFG player, right? He was never signed to play for City. He was just signed to be loaned out a couple there for what I think 1.75 million, and then you get 5 million for him, you'd be happy. But now, I for one would not want to sell him because what he does at left back, which is obviously our pain area, is I think he gets the job done very, very well. So usually in our new system, we have a back three, and usually we have Cancelo at right back. So he moves into midfield in the inverted role, which is all well documented. But that leaves Zinchenko along with the centre backs. And I did an analysis on him a couple of months, I think it was a month ago, and he's the third best ball progressor in the Premier League, and I think the best left back in the Premier League as well. So for our build-ups and for the basis of our possession play, I think he's a very important player. So I for one would not want to sell him.
So just bouncing off that, obviously important player status you give there, but John Stones at the weekend got a bit of criticism really for his defensive levels weren't great, and if you wanted to point a finger, you might have said he could have been responsible for one and a half of the goals. You know, so how do we feel about John Stones in terms of the fact that at the minute he's not how he was 6 weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago? And do you feel worried that this might stand because he made a mistake for England? I don't feel it was at fault of the weekend, but a lot of people do. And if you look at the stats and positioning, maybe it was. How do you feel about John Stones' performance the weekend? We'll go with you first, Tibbs. What do you think?
I think I'm siding with you on this one. He's not a peak John Stones that was scoring, strikers levels goals a couple of weeks back. But at the end of the day, like, we've seen the progression between the last 18 months and what he is today. So I'm not too worried. Like, it's fine to have down moments. It's like this is fine. I did notice that he seems to go all the way in a lot into the final third, a lot more. Notice the same thing with Laporte, maybe
Fulham.
2 games. Yeah, that's right. With Fulham. And so I don't know if it's Pep asking them to do that, or if they want to contribute so much more that they will take this risk. To me, being a center back, you need to get the basics right and, make sure that the defense is solid before you venture into the final third to do your thing. So I'm not worried today. If it happens over the next 2-3 games that he starts in, then I might start getting worried. But for now, it's fine.
Adi, what are your sentiments on that?
I think John Stone is definitely not playing at his peak. He might be just shaken up from the qualifiers, but he should be doing better. He's a world-class defender, and he's been playing as a striker more than recently. But that's all I have to say. He could play better, definitely. That's just my opinion, but yeah.
But Neel, do you feel like we're seeing the level of John Stones that we're going to probably see for the rest of his City career now, or do you feel like he can get back to that level that he was 5, 6, 3 months ago, 5, 6 weeks, 3 months ago? Feel like the level he's at now is what we can expect of him?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think he's dropped off that badly. He had that one big mistake for England, but then he bounced back in that game too. To be fair, he got the assist. I think he was pretty solid against Dortmund. Well, obviously, but they created a few chances, but they even flattened Diaz, so they were good. But I think it was fairly solid there. And against Leeds, you have to remember they scored 2 goals from 2 shots, so it was proper smash and grab. And I think especially for the second goal, maybe you could blame Stones for not being able to stop Dallas. But if I was to blame one person, and I don't want to do that, but if there was one person who had to take most of the blame, it was Cancelo, because both of the goals came from his channel. But overall, we were not on it defensively as a collective, because at the end of the day, defending is a team job. You can't pinpoint defending to one person. And what Tibbs said about him pushing forward. So I think it was more situational against Leeds, because after the red card and in the second half, they were essentially playing a 5-4. And obviously you have a 5-4-1, but they had a red card, so no striker. So that meant that there was tons and tons of space for him when he would pick up the ball around the halfway line. And when he sees space in front of him, you move into space. That's the fundamental of possession play. So I saw a stat that he completed 1 kilometer of progressive carries in that game. So progressive carries, basically, for those who don't know, is the distance you take the ball vertically towards the opposition goal. So even if you're moving diagonally, so if you move 15 meters diagonally, say, it will count 10 meters vertically. So he completed 1 kilometer of progressive carries, which is the highest ever recorded stat for one match since data collection began in 17-18. So in that sense, I think he was pretty good. He did all he could.
You could see that. Look, thinking back at the game, you could see it was a lot of John Stones was stepping forward. He did it a lot.
Yeah,
it's not
he was
surprising.
itching to shoot for like the whole of the second half. He was continuously getting around 30 yards from goal, and he was so wanting to shoot. He did have a couple of shots, but they were not great. But yeah, so for me overall, I wouldn't say he has dropped off too significantly. You have little ups and downs, but if you contrast this John Stones to the John Stones we had, say, 12 months ago, it's still a massive improvement. So I think he's still doing fairly well. So I don't see any reason for complaints.
I believe there was a stat floating around that. I think, I'm not saying if we're the first team that's ever done this, but every single outfield player had a shot during that game, I believe, which I think that's quite mad considering that. Yeah, we're like Mendy playing and stuff. You know what I mean? I feel like that's quite a wild stat, and I don't know if that's been the case the first time ever, or if it's the first time for City under Pep. Or I don't know, but I find that to be quite. The fact that we lost 2-1, I feel like that stat kind of speaks along with that. That literally everybody gave it a go. It just wasn't good enough.
We had 20-something shots, right? So, I mean, at the end of as I said, on some other day, 2 or 3 of those are at least going to go in. Yeah, not lucky.
The commentators over in France were having a lot of fun saying like, look, City just can't seem to do it in the final third. So have a look at Fernandinho taking that strike from afar, and have a look at John Stones trying to get the job done.
Yeah.
Despite the loss, it was quite funny to see.
So that segues quite nicely into the next part I've got here. And on my notes here, it says, panicking fans, 3 exclamation marks. So I've seen a lot of comments, social media, on the City pages and the Discord. A lot of people are panicking. The fact that the league is now back on and we've lost 1 game and it's this, that, and the other. What is it about the panicking that we've lost 4 of 49 games or something like that? Why would we lose 1 game, which we arguably didn't even play that bad in? And I don't think we played badly all season, the games we've lost. It's not like we've been battered. Why are we panicking so much? Why are we panicking as a club when we're in this position? On,
well, I think people are just used to winning. Like right now, like City fans, and if we have 1 loss, they're gonna go full apocalypse. I feel like that's right now. I feel like City fans are like, we have to win every game, or otherwise we're not going to win the trophy.
Yeah, I think what Addy says makes a lot of sense. I've said this before. Our fan base has been terribly spoiled with this run of wins. I mean, it's mad how you can win 26 games or something in a row when you're playing twice every week. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's not sustainable. And at the end of the day, football is about winning and losing. You can't just win every single match in the history and yeah, I won everything. And how is the league on? I don't understand, because we're still 11 points clear of United. Okay, yeah, they have a game in hand, but they have tough games too. I think they still have Liverpool. I think they have a couple of other top 6 teams. And so essentially what we need is 8 points from our 7 or 6 or something games. And our goal difference is also very I think it's around 20 or so more than United. So effectively, we just need 7 points. So 2 wins and a draw. I mean, as you say, we've lost 4 games in 49, and well, if you don't think,
the perspective you just said there, we've lost 4 out of 49. Now I'm going to show my age here, and like I just said, we're quite spoiled as a fan base. I remember times when we never, let alone only lost 4 out of 49, where winning 4 out of 49 was reasonable. You know, where we'd win 1 every 4 games and maybe draw, and that was our standards in the mid-90s. That was us.
Yeah.
So we are spoiled. There's a lot of spoiled City fans out there that don't know and how to take defeats, let alone understand what it was like maybe when in the 90s, early 2000s, when that was the standard.
Yeah, I mean, if you told someone 15 years ago that we'd be top of the Premier League by 11 points, in the Champions League quarterfinals, in the Carabao Cup final, in the FA Cup semi-finals, they'd have a right laugh at you, because that's 2006, we were nowhere. And so you have to remember where we're from, and you also have to remember what is possible. And it's not possible to win every single game in a season. And at the end of the day, as I said, if we win the league and a couple of other trophies, nobody is going to care whether we lost one game against Leeds. At the end of the day, what matters is if you have the trophy in your hand or not, and we hopefully will. So the meltdowns people are having is just terrible to see. Shameful, really.
Does anybody else want to go something to this panicking situation? Are any of you panicking?
No, I'm not panicking at all. I actually think it's kind of funny watching people lose it over losing.
I've seen real meltdowns.
It's ridiculous. I went on Reddit the other day and somebody was saying, "Oh, we need to sack Pep. We need
that
a
was a
new
mistake you
goalkeeper."
made right there, going on Reddit.
Yeah, no, like our soccer, worst choice of my life. Don't
that was your
recommend it
first
for
mistake.
anybody. Yeah, but I went on there, and the funny thing is, you go through 10 years of being a good football club, and people forgot that in the early 2000s we sucked. We were awful. I would sit there and I would watch games with my dad every Saturday, and I'd be like, Dad, why do we like this team? They're bad. And it's just people don't understand that we went through really tough times, and if you and I'm not saying that if you weren't there for the tough times, you can't appreciate what we have now. But going through that has got me to calm down a lot more and understand that losing one game out of a season that we've had so many wins isn't going to change the end result.
Yeah.
Well, the point you make there is I know there's a few lads in the admin team that panic. I know Tom might watch this, so Tom, I'm talking about you. Tom was like literally semi-meltdown last night, like looking at the league table and stuff, and it got me thinking.
Think most people
it got me thinking about when I was 17 years old, and this would have been early 1999, so probably just in the 1998 when we were in League Two, or League One, should I say what it is
League
now,
One, yeah.
Two. Right. So it got me thinking about what it was like to be a City fan then. And a lot of the guys, some lads older than me would have known it was like to go to the games. But then I used to go to home games, never go to away. But it was in League One then, so we were playing teams like York and Stockport County, these sort of games. And it got me thinking at the time. One time I can remember vividly is the local youth club. I was 16, 17, and United were in the Champions League, and 20 of my mates were all huddled around this little small television watching United Champions League game. And where was I? I was in the back room with a friend listening to City on the radio. I think it was something like York City away on BBC GMR. And it was the only way we could follow the game then because we were so far down. And I don't even think we won. I think we might have lost away or something. It was a terrible time. But the difference in standards back then, I'm thinking like, I weren't panicking then. It was just football. I'm now like, I'm embracing the fact that we are this successful team now. But I've been there at the very bottom as sat watching 20, 18-year-olds all cheering at United winning the Champions League and demoralising teams and they're the best team in the world. And like, I've sat there and witnessed that, and I feel bad that some of you lot haven't been able to witness that. And you're like in this generation now where we win all the time and it's kind of the norm. And it's for some people, it's really hard to take when we don't. And the perspective is I've got that perspective, but I know a lot of other City fans don't.
Yeah, it's important, as you said.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Like I think most people are forgetting. We shouldn't really panic. Leeds is a good team as it is. Losing against them is just humbling. Like they played better tactics. They're just a really exciting team to see play. Like even as the pandemic goes on, we shouldn't really panic about it. It's just gonna happen. 1 loss, 2 loss, it's okay. And then sacking Pep is gonna be the worst decision in Reddit.
Yeah,
I don't know if you. I use this like as a reference quite a lot, but Football Manager. I know there's some of you might know. That game against Leeds was a typical Football Manager.
Yeah, it was.
It was two shots, 10 men, win the game, done.
Yeah,
it was just a typical result, so I'm used to it from that. Right, I want to move on to another topic, which it was brought up by somebody in the chat group. We seem to be losing the ability to criticize players without it turning into abuse. Now, I mean, this is evident across social media. We've seen it at the weekend. I saw it at the weekend. I actually looked on Instagram and saw this. And it's a massive issue across not just the Premier League, but in all sports across all the worlds and stuff like that. But I kind of want to ask you guys, like, criticizing, if, for instance, let's say Phil Foden has a bad game and he tweets out he had a bad game, it's fair. Do you think it's fair to criticize him so publicly when he has had a bad game, for instance, Phil Foden or any footballer? Do you feel like you can criticize that player publicly? And are you comfortable with that criticism? Or, I don't want to get into the red stuff because I don't feel like I'm comfortable to talk about it being a CIS white male. But like, we seem to be losing that clear line between where criticism is allowed and then it becomes abuse. There's no clear lines anymore, and that is something that is hard to see. Yeah. So I'd like to open it up to the floor. If anyone's got a comment about that.
I do. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Aaditya.
No, you go ahead. Ahead.
I was just going to say, in regards to that Phil Foden, if he played a bad game and people wanted to, give him criticism, I feel like it's way too easy for someone to be an armchair player. Basically, it'd be like me fat body sitting on the couch watching them play a football game saying that, oh, he should have done this, when knowing that me, being who I am, could never do that. It's way easier to criticize somebody like that because you've never had to try to do it before. But there's a very clear line between criticizing somebody and then being abusive. If you say Sterling, like say Sterling missed a shot, said, oh, Sterling could have done this, this, and this, I feel like that's more criticism. But if all you're saying is, oh, Sterling missed that, Sterling's so bad, this, that, and the other, that's just straight up abuse. There's no constructive way to take that. It's just name calling. So
Yeah, I agree. Like if Foden doesn't have a great game, it's okay. I mean, like you're not going to be like the best player in the world, okay? And of course, it's okay if like you could say that, oh, he shouldn't really have rushed into it, or he held on to it for too long, or I don't think Pep was happy about that. That's just constructive criticism. If he misses like 5 tap-ins, then you could just say maybe his mind was somewhat. If he misses 20 tap-ins, then clearly something is wrong. Then that's the point where you can like give him, like you could criticize the player, like why was he like, should he have ever even played that game?
Yeah, well, for me, as I think Arthur said it pretty well. So first of all, who the hell are you? You've not done that. You're not a Premier League player. So first of all, you need to sit down for a bit. Then, secondly, constructive criticism is the key word, right? So if you're saying, okay, yeah, Sterling's finishing could have been better. Okay, I get it. But Sterling, you're just bad. Okay, what am I supposed to learn from that? And moreover, there is a very, very, very clear line between criticism and abuse. You can tell someone that you should have done this better, but you, as he said, you don't need to be name calling people. So, but the main thing for me is the first point is who the hell are you? So, you're not a football player, you're not a professional. So, I think it's best that you stick to what you're good at, which is watching the match.
I think there's a couple.
Go for it. Go, mate.
Can I take this? Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Obviously, like social media doesn't help because in that sense, it gives anyone like the ability to just come back at a player. That's for one. And there's obviously great things that come out of it, but sometimes it also can easily turn into abuse. And you can add to that a multiple layers. Like the abuse can come from trolls, it can come from opposing fans, and then when it comes from people like us, like actual fans, then that's when it's really difficult for me to understand. At the end of the day, these players, they represent the team that you support, they represent you. And it's like the season is so long, there are so many games. Every single person in the team is bound to have a couple bad games throughout the season. So it's kind of, I understand that it comes from an emotional place, but I don't think there's an ounce of space for any of that abuse towards players. It's fine if you're critical. It's fine if there's this constructive criticism, it's even better. But there's no reason to be abusing the players that we support playing for the team that we support.
I think you have some great points there. Go on, go for it.
I just like to add one thing. So, as far as the abuse is concerned, as Tip said, social media doesn't do much. Like if I like take some goal from a match and there's copyright infringement, 2 seconds the video's down. But all of this they're investigating for days and weeks and months. So that doesn't help. But for me, why do you even have to go there as a person? If you're telling someone that they had a bad game, then you just tell them how their game, like, okay, your finishing was not good. Okay, yeah, I still get that. Why do you even have to go to like personal abuses? That's just it's just fundamentally wrong. I think that is seriously concerning for me. And as Tip said, especially when it comes from our own fans, like these are the players you're supposed to be backing, you're supposed to be supporting, and one of your main jobs is to help them when they're not doing good. Obviously, when Gundogan scoring 12 goals in 3 months, everyone's like, hey, Gundogan. But when he's not having a good time, that's when you as fans have a responsibility to back him and support him. So I think it's worrying, really.
I just want to add there, obviously, what we talked about as examples is absolutely menial compared to what we really want to talk about.
Yeah.
We all know what the big problem is here, and obviously it's not a conversation we can have today, but we're all aware of it. I just feel like it's beyond unacceptable. And
Yeah.
I reported a violation of the terms of service of a website, and this person that I reported, I got feedback that nothing even happened. You know, and this would have been reported numerous times, but nothing happened. They just basically removed this person's comment, and that was it. I'm like, come on. You know, so as frustrating as it is for me, and no doubt for you lot as well, it's shit and it's unacceptable, and we condone it, you know, massively. So, I'd like to move on to something that doesn't sit right with me, and I'm just speaking from my opinion here. Now, I've seen this a lot, and it's gathering pace more and more and more as social media is more and more vocal and stuff. I hate the term plastics. Now, that is City fans labeling other fans plastic fans because they don't need them to have the same commitment to the club as they have, or they have given. So I'm going to ask you, because you four are all from different parts of the world, different continents, different cultural backgrounds, but you're all City fans, you all contribute, you have done for years, you're all in active groups, you run these podcasts. So, like, I want to ask how it feels, or how you first came across City as a club and how you came into that, because I want to know how it feels to be a fan of City from a different cultural background. So if you guys don't mind sharing how you came across the club and how long you've been a fan and stuff, I want to see what it's like from your point of view. So Arthur, we'll go from the western side, west of the world to the other side. So you go first.
I first got introduced to City back when I was 6 years old, 2001. I don't remember the game that was on. It was City versus somebody. And I just remember my dad getting so excited. Somebody had scored a goal. They had won the game. He was just so happy, so excited. And I just wanted to see more of that. So I started spending time with him every Saturday. Every time a game was on that City was playing, I'd spend time with him. And eventually I came to love the team as well. Like, I'd learned the names of the players so I could draw pictures of them while I was in school instead of doing schoolwork, things like that. So it started as a young age as just like a way to spend time with my dad, but it quickly grew into like a real passion. I'm glad that I found City when I did.
Oh, keep going, guys. Roll with it. Oh, who's next? Honestly, I really want to hear your story. So, Tibbs, you tell me about your story.
Yeah, for sure. I've mentioned this in the past. I come from the south of France. My team growing up was, and to this day still is, Monaco. However, back in 2016-17, when Monaco won the league, when we had this incredible run in the Champions League, including beating City. That year, after the season ended, I was chasing my next high, so to speak, and I was looking at where these incredible Monaco players were being bought and where they were heading, and this kind of put City on the map for me, and started paying more attention. And I don't know, like a couple years later, I had the opportunity to travel around the world, and being experienced and meeting different people from different cultures, it really highlighted to me how sports, and football especially, is the global sports, the ultimate connector. Like, you don't speak the same language, you don't come from the same background. Like, this is valid for us here chatting. Football is so universal. And so, I started joining this community that we're all a part of, and it's been great to like chat with different people from around the world. Around me, I don't really know many, if any, City fan, but I'm happy to be part of the online community, and one day be able to go to the Etihad and watch a game live with some of you guys even.
Buddy, I'll go around the clock here to you. What about you, mate?
All right. I remember distinctively. It was 2011. I was 5 years old, and then I think it was City versus Chelsea, 2012. 2012. Yeah, I think it was somewhere around March or April 2012. City won 2-1 against Chelsea. I didn't understand the game, of course. They were just in the background, and I was just watching with my dad and some of his friends. And then they got excited because City won, and I was just there. I didn't understand soccer. And then I think next year, when I was 6 years old, I started actually actively supporting City. I could just say I was a fan since then, and that's The story goes on.
One then, Neil.
Yeah.
Finish us up.
Yeah, so for me, a friend of mine was a City fan. So I think I was first introduced to a City game 2011 before the title win. So in the run up to it, so I had gone over to his place and he was watching. So yeah, I was like, let's watch. And then so I slowly got interested. I was what 7 something around then. So I wasn't too interested at the time. But yeah, I knew that City existed and I just kept tabs on them from time to time. And then yeah, in a couple of years, I started getting more interested in football, more into then naturally more into City, and yeah, ever since then I've been supporting City. So it's my first club and it's my only club.
So what I get from that is that you have every right to support this club and comment and contribute in any way you want, regardless of your global positioning, you know, where you're in the world. And that is what I love about how we've attracted a new generation of fans, because when I was 13, 14, the only City fans I knew were the ones in my village, and there was nobody anywhere else. You know what I mean? So we're growing, and I absolutely welcome you all with all arms. Come in and support us and contribute. And this is why I don't like the term plastics, because it kind of defines all you as a plastic fan. And you've all got a story. You've all contributed. You've all watched. You've all, no doubt, you'll have talked about Man City to somebody in the real world at some point for your life. And you are contributing to our name growing. And as you said, some of you just said that you watched the game with your fathers or friends, you know what I mean? Or like Tim's watched the game as a rival fan, as a rival fan, and I became to love the club from that. And I feel like labeling somebody like all yous as a plastic fan, whether you've been supporting 1 week, 1 month, 10 years, you know, I don't like that term. It kind of adds a gatekeeping to our club that we are, you know, we're the fans. The club is nothing without the fans, and we're all fans. And I hate the fact that some City fans gatekeep the club and say you have no right to give your opinion because you're from this place. You do this. I don't like that. Obviously, then there is those lines to that where there's a few people that just contribute and are idiots, and they're just doing it to cause trouble, and they are the trolls. But I hate the label, the term plastics. I don't know why you use that or feel about that, because I don't know if you've ever thought that you were considered as a plastic fan, but I guess in the general term of it, you are what I think people are saying, because you're not from Manchester, you're not English, you know, you're not necessarily even white as well. Who are you to support our club? That's the kind of theme I get from these people that make these comments, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, I think there's a clear difference between like internationally based fans and bandwagon fans. Internationally based fans, you could support a team as long as you are loyal to that team, as long as you don't like say like I like this team one day and then you like support the other team the other day. And that's bandwagon fans in general. If you supported City for their title runs, it was sort of up and down there, and then you leave them as soon as another team starts doing well, then you're clearly not a loyal fan, and that's when people can judge you. But if you're an internationally based fan and you're loyal to the team, that's when people you have every right to support whichever team you want as long as you're loyal to that team.
Yeah, I think I strongly agree with that. So there's a difference between glory hunting and, you know, just being based somewhere out of the local area of the club. So well, if you had a rule like the gatekeepers which you speak of, that you can only support the club of your town, then I don't think we'd have too many City fans. I think there'd be a massive drop in the number of City fans. Or any take any club, take Liverpool, take Manchester United, Real Madrid, Barcelona. All of them have tons and tons of fans based internationally, and they are in one part what keeps the club ticking. So you need these fans, and as an international fan, you also have to make other sacrifices. So for me, for example, I have to stay up till 3 to watch the Champions League games, right? And that's something that in England you'd never do, because you have noon kickoffs to about 7, 8, right? But for me, I have to stay up till 3 on weekdays too. That's not weekends. Like so, like Wednesday, I'll have to stay up till 3 in the night to watch the Champions League game. But yeah, I support the club. It's my club, so I'm willing to make the sacrifice. So well, if I'm a plastic after I stay up to 3 for a club which I just support for the glory of the title, then well, that doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, and that's the one thing you've just summed it right there is you have the passion for the club, you support it in whichever way you feel comfortable with, and as long as you do that, for me, and you're happy to be that, then you are entitled to support the club in any way you want, and I would never judge that. But sadly, there are tens and thousands of people that don't like it.
Yeah, can't do anything about them.
Well, they can kind of shove it in my opinion. But
That's my attitude to it. It's like,
Yeah.
there is generally people out there that gatekeep, and I don't like it. And like, I'd hate to be forced away or made to feel bad for enjoying something, which I think is what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the last 10, 15 years, City's fan base has probably grown exponentially to the point where I can't even give you a stat, you know?
Yeah.
And in that time, City fans may have come and gone, and it doesn't bother me. It's all about, I don't like to admit it, but we are now a global brand. We're not a football club.
Yeah.
We're a global brand of business. We have now gone beyond what I appreciate about City back then, and I've have to learn to live with it. Times change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and with that, there's an expectance that there's not going to be 30 million City fans in Manchester. There isn't. It just isn't going to be that way, and it's never going to be that way. And I wouldn't want it that way. I love nothing more than talking to you lot here and all across the world, and reading comments from other people. I like to see somebody, for instance, in let's just say South Africa, who's making comments on the City pages. I love to see this guy is taking the time out of his day. He's on his phone or he's on his computer. He's followed this page, he follows the team, and he's giving some feedback. Then he has the right to support this team however he wants without any criticism. And I think that for me that's the only way to support City, really.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right, now I've got that on my system. I've been brewing that for a while. It's been brewing, and given the pubs are just open in England, I feel like it was a good time to get off my chest. So.
Even I think like most City fans now have or labeled plastic fans are like the City group itself has expanded teams besides Man City itself, like New York City FC, Mumbai City FC. Like those people that start following those teams start to understand where that team's group is based. Like the parent family or team or company is Man City itself. So then they start following Man City because
through association, through the association.
That's what's fun. It's just amazing. That's I think more City fans are, other than the gatekeeper, most City fans are happy to have this sort of diversity in how who supports City and the community itself. It's really an amazing place to be honest. Like how people just talk about where they're from, who they support, where they're from. And
I've genuinely I was genuinely curious to find out what your guys' stories about how you became a City fan, because everyone's different and we all were.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can go back to the Champions League, is the next
real
game
business at hand.
The real business, yeah. We've got
the Jude Bellingham.
How are we? First of all, let's just go. How are we confident? Let's just have a quick round. Are we confident coming Wednesday? Just have a yes or no. Neil.
I'm
50-50.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 because Dortmund got that away goal, and that could really hurt City coming in. But if they do score even a single goal, they'll go through.
Yeah, for me, we might as well have been 10-0 up, but City and Champions League quarterfinals, I'll never be 100% confident. And as Adi said, that's the away goal and everything. So if we turn up, we will win it, but I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. So I'm setting myself up to not be too disappointed in case things go bad.
I would be pretty disappointed because I think City has to do this for Aguero itself. His exit confirmed, and I don't want to go all over the entire drama thing. But when he arrived in 2011, he said he wasn't going until City won the Champions League, and I figure this is where the stars align.
It is, and it will be a nice fairy tale.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That would have me in tears already.
So let's try and predict this team between us, right? I mean, although all the podcasts I've done now, I've been doing these 6-7 months now. Nobody's got a team right.
Yeah, you can't.
One was wrong, and one player was wrong. I think that's the way it goes. But...
I bet Pep watches all these podcasts just to make sure he doesn't.
Yeah, just to
check.
I'm
gonna change.
I feel like they have
seed by elimination.
Yeah.
I was going to pick that team, but not this week. Yeah, but, so let's try and dissect this lineup then. So I think we'll just go by position and see how we go with positions. But I think Ederson starts, don't he?
Yeah.
And I think we all know, given Laporte's not going to be fit, possibly. So
no, he trained today.
Did he? But do you think do you think he would be?
No.
He won't risk it.
So we're looking at Diaz and Stones, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing Diaz and Stones at center.
Let's try and pick
I'd
Oh, feel
Yes,
free.
for me, I'd go Diaz and Laporte simply because this is also reliant on our fullbacks choice. So in the last game, when we had Cancelo at left back, and when we transition into the back three with Cancelo moving into midfield, we would have Diaz at the left centre back position, right? So now what that does is he's a right-footed player in the left centre back position. So that makes ball progression a little bit tricky for him because he's playing down the left while being a right-footed player, and obviously he can do it, and he did it fairly well. But I would see a left-footed player doing that a bit better.
So you want a
So,
natural left footer in that
so yeah,
left
so
side.
for that reason alone, I would go Diaz Laporte and
Interesting.
Cancelo left
Interesting.
back, and then I'll explain later about that.
What
but
about what
yeah.
about fullbacks then? I mean,
Yeah, I
gotta
think
be Walker
Walker on the
Cancelo.
right side. Walker
Yeah.
on the right side is all on for me, but I'm still having a tough decision between Mendy and Cancelo because both are really good. I just can't see if we want to play more offensively or more defensively because Cancelo plays more like towards the halfway line, but Mendy gets all the way up there. Like he scored, and I just don't know how they're gonna play. So I'm sort of in between that. But other than that, I think I have my base sort of laid down like the back four, but it's just that left back position which I'm sort of tied in between.
Yeah, for me, Walker has to start because of the pace he brings. If you guys remember Ansgar Knauf, the 19-year-old kid who got his Dortmund debut in the last game against us, he was a substitute in the week and he scored his first goal against Stuttgart, which was a fairly good goal. He came from the left, cut inside, and then from the edge of the box, finished well into the bottom corner. So I am a bit scared about him, and that guy is quick. I'm talking Sane levels of speed, maybe even faster. That guy is really quick. So that's why I would want Walker at right back to combat against him. And obviously he can play right winger too, as he did in our game. And that's why I would go with Cancelo left back because of the defensive stability he brings. I think, well, as we saw against Leeds, Mendy's no good defensively, to be honest. So Cancelo left back, and the equally what helps is him moving into the inverted midfield role because we will need to be able to control possession. So and then that also makes my Laporte decision justified. So that's why I would go with a back four of Walker, Diaz, Laporte, Cancelo.
Yeah, just before we continue on, what formation are we think Pep's going to be running? Because of course that just dictates how the whole midfield's going to run.
Well, it's either going to be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3.
That's my bet.
In either case, you still have two wingers, one striker, and three midfielders. It's just how they're going to be lined, whether we'll have a 10 and 2 6s or a 6 and 2 8s. But at the end of the day, it'll be three midfielders. So I don't really think that's going to matter too much.
I can't wait for this prediction lineup. And
yeah,
I'm
a bit worried because if we are the team that has won 44 out of 49 games, or whatever it is, or we've won 26 out of 28 games, or whatever it is, that sort of stuff. If we're that team, then you don't change it. But I am concerned. I do generally concerned that we might see a lineup that none of us would have. Like we might get 4 or 5 right, but we might see something where it's like we might play 5 at the back and.
Nah.
Pep out.
Please.
We're not
I'd love to find out whether or not Pepper's got this over system. You know, I'd love to find out whether or not Pepper's.
I hope he's learned. I think he's learned.
League,
I seriously hope he's learned from Leo.
I don't know. He might have a Pep moment. He might overthink it.
That's what I'm concerned about. I am worried, especially coming off the back of a loss.
It's going to be Walker, Stones, Diaz at the back with Cancelo and Zinchenko on the sides.
But we can all say that.
Two left backs. That's a Pep move. They'll never expect it.
I feel like we can see. Pep and Jose Mourinho are two different people, so we can clearly rule out parking the bus. We're not going to do that. We're City. We're better than Tottenham or any other Jose Mourinho team. Okay, we can't be like that. Okay, we are not going to park the bus. We're trying to score as much because even if we play like 6 in the back, Dortmund are going to still try to exploit that space. Haaland everywhere, all over the place. He's going to end up scoring, and if they do end up scoring, then 6 in the back's not going to do anything for us up front, and we're going to have to score even then to win. So that's still a big.
So if I fill in the rest of these blanks, which I think essentially does it quite easily, really. So if I say we go with Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, Gundogan,
no,
Mahrez,
yes,
Jesus, Foden,
no,
Aguero, Aguero's
I don't think Aguero.
Nah, Aguero can't start.
I want it to be, but he isn't
I
going to be.
Yeah,
believe.
look. If you're sentimental, I see Aguero starting, but
Isn't he injured?
if Pep is letting him go, what Pep thinks is he's not fit for the big games.
Oh, he's not fit. He's missed out the weekend because he
Yeah,
wasn't
exactly.
fit.
So
So
if he's letting him go, it's clear. So then, if you're going to let him go, then there's no. If you're playing him against Dortmund in this big quarterfinal, then why are you letting him go? And if you're letting him go, why are you playing him against Dortmund? So I know my heart wants him to start, but my mind tells me he's not going to start. And
I can always
my only
believe.
change to that would be is if he doesn't start with Jesus and he puts Bernardo Silva in as a false nine.
False nine, as he did.
I
Yeah.
want
that last
Bernardo
time, though,
up
didn't
front.
we?
I want Bernardo up front straight. Like, he is really good at exploiting space between the lines, and he's actually a really good passer for a striker. And his finishing is just impeccable. And I think Jesus on the left is going to truly bring that in.
If we do have Bernardo Silva as a false nine, it kind of makes it so we have 3 false nines. I always see it as there isn't just one. It would be De Bruyne,
we do have
Bernardo,
2, yeah.
and Gundogan would be rotating, and you just have it'd be like a baseball square, whatever, the ball would be like, they would be all over. For me, I think that would be the only change. Foden has to start. I think we all agree that.
Yeah,
right?
Easily. No doubt.
And with I like the idea of having Jesus on the bench, because then when he comes on later, assuming he comes on around 65 minutes or so, when the opposition is starting to get a little tired, he can do his thing. He can press. He can put the pressure as soon as the defenders get the ball back, and we know how good he is at that. So I quite like that lineup that we've all collectively predicted.
We've rather than all going individually, we've kind of like believably that they'll come up with like 13 potential starters. So
yeah,
for me, probably the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at Pep's post-match comments after the Dortmund game, I think he said that we will go to Dortmund to win the game and to score goals, and that is how it should be, especially after we've conceded the away goals. And he said that we would also adjust our possession system and our pressing structure to play the game better. So for me, obviously it's impossible to really understand what Pep is trying to say. But for me, what that means is that we won't have a false nine, because the thing with the false nine was that we got into wide possessions fairly often, but we didn't have anyone in the box attacking those low crosses, that is a byproduct of the false nine, which you don't have a pure striker. So I think for that reason, in possession, we will need a pure striker, and for that reason, I see Jesus starting, and the other one being for the pressing, where we, as Pep said, we will need to adjust our pressing structure a bit to function better. But for me, I would not start Gundogan. I would start Fernandinho, and so it would be a 4-2-3-1 for me, simply because of the relative defensive solidity he provides. We will have the firepower up front, but I think equally we need to be sure at the back, which is perhaps even more important. So for me, it would be a 4-2-3-1 in that way. And yeah, one more thing is, so Mahrez and Foden start. I think we all agree, right? I know this hasn't been done before, and I don't expect it to be done, but I would not mind seeing Mahrez start off as a left winger for like the first 5 or 10 minutes. I only say this because Dortmund have Thomas Munier out injured. He's their first choice right back, and so they've played Mateo More against us and in the week. And I'm sure you guys have seen that clip of Foden nutmegging him and then him falling. So he was violated, right? He's not that great defensively, and our best dribbler Foden is great, but for me, our best dribbler certainly is Mahrez. So Mahrez also, he didn't have a great time against Guerrero, Dortmund's left back, who again, he's not that great defensively. So I just didn't see him attack Guerrero as much for whatever reason. So I think that little tweak with Mahrez on the left and Foden starting on the right, again, I don't expect this, but I wouldn't mind it. It could make a difference. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, then you can just swap them around and they're in their positions.
I was about to add that, Daniel. Like, I feel like that's not something we take advantage of enough. You might see it maybe once or twice in a game, whereas I always go back. Watching United in the 90s, they had these flying wingers and they would switch and and if somebody was weak, they would switch and just keep doing it. And you'd see Ryan Giggs pop on the right side for 10 minutes and move. I don't feel like we do that enough, and it's not that the players aren't flexible, because they can play anywhere. They pretty much can play anywhere.
So we have what it takes.
we should be. Phil Foden should have. For instance, he should murder that right back for 10 minutes and then go out and do the same to the left back, and then the person who he's not with anymore might feel like, oh, I'm getting a bit of leeway. But then you've got Mahrez, and it's completely that 10-minute period where they don't know where they are. I feel like we need to. That's something we don't do as much as we should do.
I think the main reason for that is the way we play, right? So with our pressing structures and everything, every player has very specific instructions, and if you are a pre-match, if you're telling a player, okay, you're right winger, but you could be left winger, so these are your instructions for right winger, and then but if I tell you to go to left winger, then you'll have to do this. You might end up putting too much information in their head, and it might go over their head a bit. So you don't want that. So, and this is a byproduct of Pep's positional play and everything, where there's all those rotations that you practice on the training ground, all the structures you have to follow, and all the fundamentals of it that you have to keep in line with. So I think because of that we can't do it as often, but I think we do see it fairly often. So I'd like to go back to the Liverpool 4-1, where Foden effectively, I think, played like 3 or 4 positions in that match. He started off as left winger, came into midfield after one substitution, moved into a false 9 role after another, and ended the game where he got his goal at right winger. So I think we do that when there is a need, but I think there is good reason for us not doing it as often as United in the 90s, for example.
Fair enough.
If I could add something,
Sure.
like we know that Dortmund are going to be trying. They know that if they score 1 goal to tie it up, and if they keep it at a tie, they're going to be moving on. So they're obviously going to be trying to get that goal, and it's going to be at the risk of leaving some of their defenders. So they're probably going to be like switching to FIFA Ultra attacking, like 2 defenders, 8 strikers straight up. They're going to be trying to get the goal, even if it's willy-nilly and not even composed. So I think like City's going to try to take advantage of that, control the ball, play it more defensively, and they're going to keep their head cool. And like Dortmund probably will, because they're going to try to get that goal. And then if we switch into that defensive to attacking, like clean, just good passing, straight to attacking, and with the counterattacks, City's counterattacks are no doubt deadly. And especially if we see what I think could go on, we'll have a a good enough time playing through it doesn't matter where someone plays, it just matters how our transitions from defense to attack goes.
So let's try and come up with a result here. So Arthur, what's your prediction for the game result?
6-1 City.
We did that to Schalke, right?
Yeah.
Was that 6 or 7?
7-0.
A couple,
7-0.
7, yeah.
No, I feel like despite us losing to Leeds and everybody getting all shaken up and worried about it, everybody's like, "Oh no, what'll happen?" I feel like it'll still be a pretty comfortable game for us. I think they will score, but I think we'll get another 2 back. So I think it'll be another 2-1 City.
Tibbs?
I feel like with Leeds, we're going to need a little bit of a bounce game, a bit of a bounce back, and spank the Yellow Boys. So I would like to see a 3-1. I think, they do have Haaland over there. Sancho, I think, trained, may or may not feature in the game. So
I don't think he will. I think it's almost confirmed. There's no chance of him starting at least.
Yeah. But so yeah, I'm thinking 3-1. Solid victory.
Eddie? Eddie, what about you, mate?
I think at best 1-0, but if it comes to that point, then it's going to be just maybe I could say at best 2-0, but that's just it for me. I'd like to see City smack the yellow off their kits, but honestly don't think it will be possible.
So before I come to you, Neel, I'll chuck mine in now. I'm going to say 3-0. I'm going to go with a 3-0. And I think 3-0, I'll take that. Nice game, bit of
My heart won't
entertainment.
take it.
Let Alan score a couple, maybe give a bit of confidence, something, a bit of celebratory, get him feeling it, and towards the end of the season, have the rest of a good season.
Meet the defender.
Yeah, so for me, 3-0. What about you then, Neel?
Yeah, so I agree with Eddie. I'd say I would take a 1-0, but best case 2-0. So yeah, but what I would like to see is more than the result is just how we go and play, because if we get 2, then they have to score 4, right? So if we go with the mentality of scoring goals early and trying to put it past them early, then I think that would be quite encouraging. I don't think the Leeds game should really have too much of an effect, because well, that was effectively our B team, right? And we won't have too many of the same players starting, and we were robbed at the end of the day. So I hope that doesn't have too much of an effect. So yeah, I'll take a 1-0, but I would like to see a 2-0. Thank you very
At
much.
least we all see ourselves going through.
Yeah,
That's the good
Yeah.
thing.
I like our odds.
Right. So to wrap up, I'm going to ask you all a question. Now, it's not necessarily based on the word quadruple, but
I don't like where this is going.
I heard the Q word.
right.
Yeah.
So if Manchester City were only to win the Premier League this season, would you be happy or disappointed?
If they were 2 or were not,
If they were only to walk away with the Premier League title this season, would you be happy or disappointed?
I would be disappointed. No, they could do so much more. I would be super disappointed.
You see, like you've itching to contribute with something there.
It would hurt a lot to not win the Champions League for Aguero, but in the end, we're still winning one of the best trophies that you can win in football. And I remember never thinking we'd win a trophy. So to me, it's like winning the Premier League is more important than the Champions League. But then again, I'm a little biased. So for me, I'd be happy, but I know a lot of people wouldn't be happy.
What about you, Neil?
I would be. I don't know. I would be happy and disappointed maybe. So yeah, it's nice to win the Premier League, but for me, this is. I said this before. This is a huge chance for us to win the Champions League, because we're properly firing, and all the other teams in Europe, they're not, performing at their peak. So if we look at all the teams left apart from Dortmund, you look at Bayern and PSG. They're both doing well. But Bayern right now, they're not performing at their best. They lost to PSG, for example, and PSG are not even on top of Liga. And who thought that was going to happen? So they're not doing too well. You have Chelsea and Porto, and yeah, to be honest, Chelsea are the team that scare me the most in the opposite side of the bracket, because under Tuchel they've been good, but they had that 5-2 against West Brom, which came at the right time for me. So that knocked them off a bit. I'm sure it did. Porto again, yeah, they're good, but I don't see them to be too much of a threat. And then we have Real Madrid and Liverpool, and so Liverpool are obviously not at that level anymore. There's no, the leagues has it all, and Real as well. They won the Clasico, but they're not top of La Liga yet. And again, they're not performing at their peak. So for me, if there was a season where we were going to win the Champions League, it has to be this. So I would be quite disappointed if we don't take it, but I'm not going to expect it again.
Yeah.
Not to set myself up for disappointment.
I'm sorry for busting this in, but we could win so much. The Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cup. We're in the FA Cup semi-finals against Chelsea. Okay.
Yeah.
If we beat them in the semi-finals and we face them in the finals, what does that make us look like? That makes us more dominant, right? And then if we and then the EFL Cup final.
Yeah.
It's against Tottenham of all players. Like we can't let them win. We can't let them win a major trophy. We can't let them do that. It's just too much.
Well, tips.
I'm in line with what was said. It does really feel like the league is a done deal at this point. So not getting another trophy would be a little bit disappointing if for the ego of this City fan. But the Champions League, we know it's not just how good your team is. It's also a little bit of luck, a little bit of maybe a lot of luck, depending on your beliefs. Knockout momentum as well. And it does seem like this year the planets are little by little aligning so that we can get this done. And naturally, if it does happen, then I think City is like no one can say anything anymore,
So, they will say something. They'll find something. They will say something.
Call us plastic waste again.
You didn't win the Community Shield.
Yeah.
You didn't win the International Champions Cup.
I think for me, I would still be happy that we won, which is arguably the best trophy we can win.
Mm-hmm.
The Champions League's a bit of a roll of the dice for me, but I always bread and butter that in the history books, you'll always look at this league title, and the year it was won would be a City badge, and that's all that matters to me. So when it comes down to it, I would still be happy that if we just won one trophy and then next year we won it again, just keep adding them up. You know, it will be on double figures,
One
and then
after
we,
the other,
that's it.
Yeah.
We're in our more successful period. To add something to that might not be what we all want, but just keep adding something to it.
Yeah.
Keep the bomb, keep the momentum rolling. For every trophy we win, somebody else doesn't win. So I'm happy to just walk away with that.
Yeah, and
Lads,
just to
Go on.
oh sorry, yeah.
No,
Just to add, if we're talking about the Q word, we also have to remember that we have the FA Cup and the EFL Cup, right? So in the FA Cup, we have Chelsea again, which I think the semi-final is more of the final there, because the other side is just Bournemouth and Southampton, and all due respect to them, we can probably beat either of those teams if we progress. But Chelsea are the one that scare me, as I said. And again, the EFL, the League Cup, we have Spurs, and it is in the history of Spurs to not win finals. So I hope we do get that at least. So so yeah, there is a possibility of at least one more trophy, I'd hope, if not the Champions League. I would hope for one more at least.
Lads, this has been absolutely amazing chat tonight. I've really appreciated you all. Thank you all so much for coming on. And it's especially important for me to listen to your guys' stories about your background, how you've been a City fan. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching.
for having
We'll
us.
catch you all in the next one.
Yeah.
Take care,
Thank you.
lads.
Sounds
Bye.
good. Have a good one, everyone.